Back to Day Trade Like a Pro. It's the review for April 6th. This morning we said that the move up was not over with, that we were at least going to get to 4,076. The current all-time high at that time was 4,074 half. So that was 6 ticks higher. We said we'd at least get that part and probably more, and today ended up being fairly small range. The current all-time high while I'm doing this video, 4,076 to the tick. If you've been watching the videos, we've been doing this day in, day out. This shouldn't be a surprise anymore. Let's go look at the chart and see how it is. By the way, if you're not subscribed to the channel, you're missing out on getting notified when we're going live here. And so go ahead and click subscribe and you'll get notified when we do go live. And if you can't make that, you'll at least know when we have a new video out on the channel. Been doing these reviews and also the pre-market videos. So before we go over and look at the S&P, let's take a look at the NASDAQ. We have some traders. We actually have a number of traders who trade the NASDAQ. And so let's jump over and look at that. So I'm going to just, these are the prediction points from today. And I'm going to just look at a couple of things. So number one, I don't really know the whole story here of what's going on with the NASDAQ. I haven't been following along. I haven't been trading it. It's not really my thing, but so I'm a little out of the loop of as far as what is the whole story here, what's all of the context with the NASDAQ. So I'm not really sure what that is, but so I don't know. For all I know, we may have had a CP up here yesterday. This fulfilled that leg, and I don't really know. So I'm a little out of the loop on some of those things, but what I can do is I can look at the chart now. If I'm going off of this, we have a move. So let's just start. Here's the beginning of Globex. We have this move up above the CP here. It pulls back, that holds, and then no real good push up higher here. The next move, so this is a long ways up here. So let's put, let's draw this in, and that would come down to there. So didn't even get up to there. So this is probably about 50%. Yeah. So I think if we had like a 12.5% level, it's probably right about there. Sometimes this gets confusing if I do this, so maybe don't pay a ton of attention to that. Yeah. So halfway between here and here, which would be a 12.5%, which sometimes we'll do when the gap is really big here. You can see that was actually to the tick right there. So that's kind of interesting. So that's a thing that I'd look at coming in here. This is a pretty big gap between here. It's like what 606 up, and this is 740. So that's about 130-ish points. Is that, yeah, 130-ish points. Okay. And so this would be a pretty big move up, and we'll see. We may end up, it's probably not done here. We'll see. Anyway, so then what I notice is the next pullback, which I wouldn't expect this would really hold. They already held here. I would expect that it would come back to here. Where are we? So I'd expect that it would come back to here minimum, but I'm not really sure that this is going to hold because there was already a lot of activity that already happened here. This is a pretty good area. This would be, so this is an area of interest for me for buying into here. And I'll just kind of highlight that. So I'm just kind of going through and looking at some of the areas on the chart. So this is an area of interest for buying. It's where it really kind of took off from. So what happened in the Globex session? They came down. They ended up holding this right here. I want to point out a couple of things. If they were to take this out, this is kind of an interesting area. They could come down to either one of these really. I would say this has been tested already. This was not retested. So this is tested, and it's a little tricky because you have this CP up here and then no CP for like how far? Quite a ways up here. 1380, let's call it. Sorry, 13780. And then this one down here. So if I am looking at this coming in here, I'm thinking as long as they're holding above here, I'm a buyer if they're holding up above here. They break down below here and then hold this CP, I'm a seller. If they break here and hold up here, I'm a seller as long as this holds. Um, as long as this holds, I'm a buyer looking for a move and a breakout back up, especially since they broke up here already. This is to me kind of a hint that they want to go higher. So that's kind of how I'm interpreting it right now coming in here. So here, I mean, you know, this is really interesting. So first of all, this is a little bit pre-market, but this is 595. That ends up coming down to 577, so about 18 points. Depending on how you trade NQ, that may or may not be enough for you. Obviously, there's trades. This is a great short opportunity. This is a great long opportunity. And then I'm going to get rid of this just so we don't have that on there. And then a great short opportunity if this is holding down here. But ultimately, I really want to be a buyer. So I'm going to show you what I'm looking at right here. For me, in this, um, so here's the midpoint, 47.50. But here's what's really interesting to me. This already held right here, and then this is holding right here. And then when this held right here at the open, so this is the opening candle, and then this held, to me, I want to be buying as long as they're holding this. And I would probably do something like, I'd probably draw a trend line either like this, or both of them would be fine. But as long as they're holding, really the swing, the trend line could be useful, but really as long as they're holding this, here's a low, here's a higher low, here's a higher low. So by this point, I'm really thinking higher. And notice they've already tested this, they already tested it over here, they've already tested over here. They probably are going to break out and go higher. That's what we're looking for. But there's a long ways to run, and Omega talked about this in his training last week about when there's a really big gap, and here there's a 130 point gap in between prediction points up here, you can kind of get into no man's land up there. So one of the things I've talked about with prediction points is that it is both a specific price and an area to pay attention to. And so many traders get so hung up on this tick or that tick. And I'm willing to bet you didn't trade that way before you started using prediction points or before you came here. I bet that your trading wasn't, well, what about this tick or that tick? And so that probably wasn't how it was going before. And so I wouldn't get hung up on this tick or that tick. All right, you're looking at what's the area that, and think in concepts rather than trying to be really rigid in your thinking. So here's a test. First of all, keep in mind, this is really important. They broke up above here already. If big institutional money is getting short up here, this probably isn't happening. All right, so they broke up above here already. Here's one test. They sold that. Here's a second test. They sold that. That came down to here. That held above this. So you've got really 1, 2, 3, and now a fourth higher low. So then this comes up here. I mean, there's an opportunity you can get long from this KP up to this CP. Even if you shorted the CP here, it broke by about 6 points or so. Yeah, about 6 points up to here. So even if you shorted this, which I don't know why you would be shorting this, that would not be my trade. I guess you could make an argument that might be worth shorting it. So let me walk you through what I think the trades are coming into the open. So here's the opening candle right there. That's the opening candle. What I think the trades are is you don't have this level drawn in here, so you're basically looking for a buy. And I personally am not really crazy about trading inside of this area where all this other trading's happened. So what I want to see is I want to see a move up above the prediction point, come back to the prediction point, and I want to buy the prediction point. So here's 571. That's the prediction point. That probe there is about 11 points. So I know that, let's say Jaime's using a 6 point stop. So he'd have gotten stopped out on a trade like this. You might have to re-enter it. Sometimes you have to take a couple cracks at it before. So you get stopped out. Okay, you can always get back in and and then get that move up. So the trades, I think you could make an argument for going short here, although I don't like it, especially it's literally the third time it's tested. I just don't like it at all. So could it work? Yes. Did it work a little bit? Yes, it did work a little bit. So what I like, here's the trades for me. Since we didn't break up above here, if this would have looked like we broke up above here and came back, I could make an argument for buying this. So see how we broke and then came back, I can make an argument for buying here. So let's just say that you bought here. This was your first trade of the day because you really primarily should be on buy side over here. So you bought here and you got stopped out and you didn't get anything on that trade. So let's just say you're using a 6 point stop. Okay, you're stopped out. So what's your next trade? Let's say you're not selling here. Let's just talk about buy side. So here's your trade again. So this is 71.75. The low there is 72.75. So that's a point. And that's what I said. You can't get all hung up on this tick or that tick. You got to get in the trade. Look back over here. Front ran it by a point or so over here. So you got to get in this trade. 2.5 points on the Nasdaq is a point on the S&P 500. So even if you were a point and a half in front of this, that's still like 2 ticks on the ES. So your job is to get in the trade, not to say, well, I had my order sitting right there at the KP. So if you got in the trade right here, so you got in here, you lost 6 points, you got in here, this trade literally goes from 72 to 06. That's like, let's just call it 30 points for easy math. So you lost 10 and you got 30 over here, so you're up 20 points. Let's say you got in right here at 71 and it came down to 63. So if you're using a 6 point stop, which I'm not advocating for that or whatever, that's what Jaime's found works for him. Some traders are using 10 or 25 or whatever. Just whatever works for you. So let's say you got in right here. Ideally, you would want to have on an entry here, you want your stop below this swing, and on an entry here, you want your stop below this swing, ideally below that one. But let's say you didn't do that. So now let's say you're down another, let's say you're down six. Okay, so you're down 6 points here, you got 30 points over here, you're down 24, you're up 24 points, or sorry, on this one, 24 points profit total. You lose 6 points over here, you're still up 18 points. And then what's your trade? You're long right here. You hardly take any heat. You're long from 95. Where are you covering? Probably, given this big gap, you're covering at least some of it up here. And that's 37. So you're long from 95 to 37. Let's just call it 40 points. So that's 58 points if that's all you did. So what else could you make an argument for doing? Well, you can make an argument for buying the CP over here. So you bought the CP and you lost 6 points. Okay, so now you go from being up 58 points to being up 52 points. This already got tested. I wouldn't rebuy it. I wouldn't rebuy this. And then this comes back down into this area. This ends up, what did we talk about this? You're really a buyer as long as this is holding over here. So that does hold over there. And then what happens coming into the rest of the day? So doesn't, it breaks up above here but doesn't pull back enough to buy it. This is not really enough momentum for me to buy this high, especially not breaking up above the CP. This is really a congestion area. That congestion plays out. I don't really see any trades in here. If you did trade in here, you had, 3 days to break even on those trades. And then you're coming right into the close. This is pretty aggressive. If you did buy here, this was 5 minutes that you could get this trade off. If you're buying this at the close, this thing should be ripping at the close, and that wasn't happening. So that's it. As far as I can see, I mean, those are really the trades. If you are struggling, if you're trying to get in the groove and you're trying to find where are the prediction points that I should be trading on, what are the prediction point trades, don't make up trades. This is the NASDAQ, and from the open, let's just call it 530, let's just call it 540 up to 650. It's a 120 point range. On the NASDAQ, that's nothing. And if you're a NASDAQ trader, you know that's really nothing. When the NASDAQ moves, there's 500 point range days. So this is a very kind of consolidated, big moves give way to small moves, and small moves give way to big moves. Okay? So if you came in here today and you were thinking gray, it's going to be like it was when it ripped up on, Monday or ripped up at the end of last week, and you're thinking you're going to trade it like that. Well, that's really silly. I mean, I don't know why you would, I just don't know why you would do that. You got to treat today like today. To me, I think there's some pretty obvious trades here. I think that buying here, I think buying here, either one, both of these, either one of them, but definitely buying here, and then buying this one, and then you could try buying it over here. I think that would make sense to buy it over here. I wouldn't buy it here, and I wouldn't buy it here. Let's really quick, and then we'll jump over and we'll look at the S&P because I know that's been a lot of what we focused on. I just wanted to look at a 1 minute chart here really quick and just kind of give you an idea of, let's say, some of these trades, if you got in the trade, how long it gave you to get out of the trade. So over here, if you, once this came up above here, if you got in right here, look at the reaction, no follow through, comes back, great, you get out at break even. Okay? So over here, let's say you sold this. It hung around here for 4 or 5 minutes, get out at break even. Came over here, no real let's say you sold it, no real follow through. Let's say you bought it on a breakout, which I wouldn't advocate for, but you bought it on a breakout. Came down, came back up, you're out at break even. If you sold, this is just a 1 minute chart. If you sold this, nice follow through. If you bought it, look how quickly it works. If you sold it, look how quickly it works. Follows up to here, there's a short, look how quickly it works, never looks back. If you bought this, look what happens. So comes over here, okay, no follow through. All right, this is in the first hour of trading. If it's really volatile and there's things really moving, the market should really kind of pick up and start moving. Uh, Not going anywhere. You can get out at break even. Look what did happen, by the way. I don't want to get too far in the weeds here, but if you look at this, I'm just drawing this around the body of this candle. Look where it came right back to. So, oh, it didn't come back to the KP. No, it didn't. Look right here. Look what they were using as this is kind of a little supply area, and it was or a demand area, and it was a demand area over here as well. So, of course, they come right back into that. Okay. And then what happens, breaks up here. You could have gotten this move up off of here, came over here. You could have gotten this move up over here. Look, if you bought it right here, not working, great, get out. If you bought it right here, not working, get out. Okay? And then when it came down here, let's see. Even this, to me, when you get really good, I mean, it's easy to look back in hindsight and go, oh, look, you could have gotten out of this. I think when you get really good as a trader and you know your own patterns and the things that you do and what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, these are things you can look at and go, okay, this isn't the trade I'm looking for. You know, it's not taking off. It's not going the way that I want it to. And then you notice this is just that line I drew overnight. So comes down here. If you bought this, not really going anywhere, great. Get out of break even or close to break even. Don't be obsessed about if it's break even or not. But and then look when it came down here. Okay, you bought that. Nice move up to there. No follow through. No higher high. Okay, great. Take some profit. Get out of it. Came back. Look how long you had. This is like an eternity in trading time. If you got long here, look how long you had to get out of that at break even. When it came down to here, plenty of time to get out of this. Okay, so plenty happening with that. Okay, so let's so that's the Nasdaq. Let's look over at the S&P. If you remember this morning when we came in here, we said 4,076. Then and we said that that would be the target here at a minimum. And then what happened? We got to 4,076 to the tick. So some pretty nice opportunities here. This was the open, little pullback here to 59. That was the, by the way, that's the 50% fib level that we had drawn in. It pulled right back to it, just sort of took off. Remember we said that we would need to get above that 6250 area, something like that. So they did come up here. They came back to 63.25. We were trying to get long here in the live trade signals, missed it by a tick in the live trade signals, but then this move, and it ended up moving right up 75.75, and then a little bit later on, they did go to 76 to the tick. Pretty amazing. And then what happened? No real follow through. In the live trade signals, we ended up buying 63.50 down here. And there was this nice move up there. Just came back to the CP, then just no real follow through there. But a couple of nice trades. This ended up kind of bottoming out right here, coming into the close. And then here we are currently. So I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to say the S&P, I still don't think it's over with. Not supposed to be over with. If it does break down, we'll go over that all in the morning, what that's going to look like. But if it does break down, I think there's going to be some trouble in paradise because we should be seeing, let's say, geez, it just keeps getting higher and higher up here. 4,090 plus, just kind of depending on the timing. So we'll just kind of have to go with that, but pretty wild. So it's not over with. It's not supposed to be over with. If they are unsuccessful in getting another leg up, we could switch temporarily to sell side, and we'll have to see if that becomes some major selling. We'll go over all that in the morning when we do the pre-market video. But there you have it. Hopefully, some of the stuff that you had that we covered here, particularly with the NASDAQ, hopefully that's helpful. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and we'll get those answered. You can post comments here in the chat here or the comment section on YouTube, or feel free to send us an email, support@daytradelikeapro.com. We're happy to answer your questions, or of course, if you're in our Discord community, you can post it up in there, and myself or one of the great members will get back with you, and we'll help as much as we can. So great having you here. We'll see you in the morning for the pre-market video. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe, and we'll be back in the morning with the pre-market video. Talk then.